I'm always careful not to speak too loudly when I'm using a headphones. I don't know if it's distorted or not, but all right. So, really quickly, we are in chapter 2 tonight. Please remember that you should be reading chapters 1, 2, and 7 for week 1. Just to do a small recap, um, make sure that I think all of us were the second and third bullet. Don't worry about that. I'll get to that in a second. But um, I believe everyone here, maybe one or two people, please make sure, guys, that you do your participation assignment before you log out at 10 p.m. I'm still having one or two people come to the live session, but if you do not answer the question that I give at the end of the session, you don't get attendance. So it's like you come to the live session, but you're not getting attendance. If you need support, if you don't know how to turn in your attendance, please ask me. Is there anyone here that does not know how to turn in their attendance assignment? I want to make sure we all know how to do that. Everybody understands that you must turn in your attendance assignment in order to get attendance. It's not just coming to the live session. That's not how you get attendance. Okay. All right. All right. So wanted to mention that your career plan. We talked about career plan yesterday. You will. Let's see. No, no, no. Did you guys schedule? Let's see. Because I wanted to make sure this is not this class because I switched those two assignments around, but I don't think I did it for your class. Let me just see really quickly. Um, normally
I
we
submitted those dates last night, by the way.
Okay, okay. So yesterday was the career plan. So tonight we'll be scheduling your service with career services. And I heard that um, they've already given you your dates. Is that correct for most of you guys? You guys have already
That's
gotten your dates?
that's correct.
Okay, everyone, please, everyone, if you have not spoken with career services, please make sure that you do because you need to turn that in as an assignment tonight. So, whatever times they have given you, you need to go to the assignment today and turn that in as an assignment. All right? All right. I just really hate for anyone to get left behind or get confused. So, I want to make sure we understand that. All right. So, let's go ahead and go back here. Tonight, guys, we're going to piggyback off of our conversation from yesterday where we opened up the discussion on skills. Clearly, we understand that we need skills in order to have a career, right? We wouldn't be in school if we didn't understand that it requires skills in order to secure employment as a professional. Our most basic skills, right? Of course, we understand that companies expect you to know how to read, to write, to speak, to do basic math and basic technology. We're aware of that, right? Like everybody is going to expect that. They are also going to expect you to have the technical skills. Please note when I say technical skills that that is interchangeable with hard skills. In chapters 1 and 2, they will use the terminology hard skills, technical skills. Those are one and the same. On your midterm next week, you will, may have a question that asks what's another name for hard skills. It's technical skills. Those skills are what the skills that you're learning, those hands-on experiences that you're having currently. When we go over job descriptions tomorrow, we'll notice that most companies will say right at the top, I need you to know how to do these basic things. But companies also expect you to have soft skills, right? We discussed that yesterday. In chapter 2, they use the terminology employability skills, foundational skills, transferable skills. These are all considered soft skills. What do they mean? Basically, your ability to think, your ability to work well with others, and your ability to emotionally regulate yourself. And we'll actually spend a little time talking about emotional regulation a little further in the course. So, in addition to your skill set, companies expect you. I know this is may sound a bit, I don't know, whatever, but they expect you to have ethics. And the reason why I say it may sound a certain way is because some of us may not equate ethics with work, right? Like if someone asks you, "Are you an ethical person?" You may even kind of look at them, oddly and say, "Well, yeah, why would I not be?" But because it's not something that we necessarily think about, right? Most of our principles and our morals and our beliefs start at home, right? We grow up with those things. But truth be told, we don't all grow up in the same way. So what I may consider proper behavior may be totally different from what you consider proper behavior. As a result of that, companies know that when you come to work for them, they cannot assume that you know what they want, how they want you to behave. So most companies will have their own set of ethics, their own set of principles that define your behavior. And let me tell you, they will ensure that you know it. It's going to be in your handbook, it's going to be in training, and depending upon the type of work that you do, all of you are in electrical, but which will require some form of ethics, especially if you are dealing with residential customers. But obviously, you are dealing with things that are dangerous, right? So that is going to come with a certain set of ethics, right? Outside of OSHA standards and all of those other things. And so the company that you work with, let's pretend that you're working for a new construction company and you're doing the electrical work. They're definitely going to have some ethical standards that they want you to abide by. Don't confuse the two codes that we're about to talk about. There is a code of conduct and there is a code of ethics. The code of conduct is how they want you to personally behave, what they expect of you as you represent the company. If you are working with customers, for example, you are an agent of the institution. So they are going to expect you to have a certain behavior. When you go to your local CVS, your local Public, when you go Publix, if you go to a car lot, an accounting firm, who is Publix to you? Publix is the person that you're dealing with, right? You don't see the CEO of Publix. You don't see any executive of Publix. Who are you dealing with at Publix? You're dealing with the person that's servicing you. To you, they're Publix. Is that not the true? So those are agents of the institution. When you go work somewhere, you are an agent of the institution. And as such, they expect you to have a certain code of conduct because you are representing the company. Now, a code of ethics has to do with how you do the work. So, for example, if you work for Lennar Homes and you are building homes, the code of conduct is how you may have to interact, if at all, with a customer, with a project manager, maybe with different people on the team. The code of ethics has to do with how you do your work. If they say it's a 12-step process in order for you to get, to run the wires and do whatever it is you need to do and do your safety check, then they expect you to do a 12-step process, not a 10-step process, not a 15-step process, and they expect you to do your safety check, right? That's code of ethics. That's what they expect of you. Please make sure that you understand them both. Here's why it is critically important as you go into your profession that you do. Doing something unethical can get you fired. Doing something illegal can get you in court. You can do things that are both unethical and illegal at your job. Is that not true? Have we not heard of people that have done things that have gotten them in trouble at work? It is important that you know the difference. For example, none of you are in the VA program, so I'll use it as an example. If I'm a veterinary assistant and I have medication and I decide just to take a couple of those little drops, extra drops or whatever home because maybe I have a sick dog but I didn't pay for it, did I do something illegal? Yes or no? If I take medicine from the job, that's illegal, right? That could get me fired and what? And put in jail, right? Or in court. So you got to know the difference. And, I mean, clearly most of us know the difference between what's unethical and what's illegal, but you have to make sure that you do. And another reason why companies are going to, really, really talk about that is because not only, now watch this, not only can you do something unethical, not only can you do something illegal, but you can also get the company sued. Hmm? Have we heard stories about companies that get sued on behalf of because their employee did something? It's a real deal. It's the real deal. Guess what? They say more money, more problems. As a professional, people expect you to act professional. It's so important that we're going to have a whole topic on professionalism because you are an agent of the institution. My friends, you're the subject matter expert. There's a reason why you get your diploma. When someone shows up at your house and they say that they work for Spectrum or they are there to do drywall or they're the plumber, you expect them to be professional, don't you? It's the same way people expect you to be professional, and you don't want to do anything to get your company in court or yourself in court. It is so important for you to understand what is both unethical and what is illegal, and they are not synonymous. You can have plenty of things that are legal that are unethical, right? The two examples that are here on the screen, there are a few more in chapter two, is both discrimination and harassment. What some people don't know is both of those things are illegal. That means those things can get you in court, i.e., get the company in court. Yeah, they're big, big things. They're a big thing in business, right? Doing things that are discriminatory and doing things that are harassing. It's one of the reasons why HR does a lot of training on that because companies recognize they need people to operate, but they also recognize that people are their biggest risk. Can you see how that can be true? Think about it if you had your own business. Unfortunately, people are your biggest asset and they're your biggest risk. Your biggest risk. So just get ready to get a lot of training on that once you become a professional. Another thing that companies are wanting you to be mindful of. Now, we will talk about this in week three when we talk about networking. Is it important for you to have a presence online? It kind of is. And we'll talk about why that is, especially if you're going to run your own business. You need to promote yourself online, even if you're just going to work for someone. Nowadays, my friends, if you're not online, it's like not having credit. Anybody ever tried to buy something and you don't have credit? They say not having credit is just as bad as having bad credit. Nowadays, not being online, not having some type of online presence, and I'm talking about professional presence, is just like not having any work experience at all. People want to be able to look you up. So, is it important for you to have some type of online presence? It is, and we'll discuss how much so later. But when you are online, you need to be responsible. There's this thing called a digital footprint. That means that any tech savvy company that wants to can have some IT techie person go and do a reverse engineer on you and find out all the horrible things you've ever posted online. Now, most companies won't do that, but obviously, the higher up you go, the more sensitive your position is, the more public it may be. They may do that. I had a CEO that did that. I thought she was a bit extra because she would do it on everybody, but she did it. So don't think that people don't do that. There are companies that will go to see what you post online because they want to be careful with who they hire. So back in the day, we used to call it Twitter fingers, right? Twitter fingers. That means you're online. You have all this to say, blah blah blah. And I get it, and I don't get it. I didn't grow up. I'm Generation X, so we didn't necessarily grow up with Twitter fingers. By the time Twitter came along, it was more of a professional thing. I used to go to Twitter to get all my news feeds, right? I didn't necessarily comment on everything, but if you grew up in the IT era, like a little bit of millennials, but definitely Gen Z, they're online all the time. It's synonymous with regular life, right? They get laptops and iPads in what, elementary school. So it's a part of their social engagement. But you have to be very careful. Give me a thumbs up if you've heard about somebody losing their job because of what they posted online. Heard of that? Let me ask you how you feel about this. I don't know if you guys heard a little while ago about the teacher in Florida that lost her job because of her extracurricular activities online. Anybody heard about that? She tried to sue. I don't know if she ever got her job back. But let me ask you this. I don't know how many of you have children, but give me a thumbs up if you would have a problem with your child in the 6th grade and their social studies teacher, Miss Smith, having an extracurricular page on the internet. Who would have a problem with that? One of the concerns that you may have, understandably, is that nowadays these teachers have students online all the time. They encourage it. They tell them to go to these different websites, Discord, and all these different things, and students are posting online all the time. Would you want little Timmy to run across Mrs. Smith's extracurricular page? He's going to get more than a social studies lesson, right? That could be an issue, right? Some people say my office hours are 9 to 5, but not when you work for a company. You are an agent of the institution, and as such, you have to carry yourself a certain way. If you don't want to do that, then own your own business, and there's a risk there, but at least you call the shots. So you have to be careful what you do online. I tell people, if you know that you're the type of person that maybe you are a little bit more expressive and you like to do a lot of postings and stuff, once you get this diploma, if you go on to get certifications and stuff, if I were you, I would taper that, because all it takes is one disgruntled customer that decides to go do a little research on you and put you on blast for something that you may have said that wasn't intended for everyone's eyes. But please understand this. Once you post something on live, it is public. There is no such thing as private once you put it online. It is public. You do understand that, right? So, yes, we do want you to be online, but as a professional, you need to really think through how do you utilize that. To that end, companies will be online. They will use a lot of cloud computing. It'll talk about that in chapter 2. Even if that means, you are going out and you're seeing customers or you're doing jobs and your company is using a Google platform, that's a cloud-based platform, or they're using Microsoft 365, which is a cloud-based platform. You have to go and you have to post stuff. Please don't post anything personal on these people's cloud platforms. Please don't, oh, let me do my budget real quick. Let me pay my bill. Like, stay away from that. If your company gives you a laptop, don't do anything personal. Anything that you do that is personal on a employer's equipment is the employer's business. You do know that, right? So what was once your business now becomes their business. You do not want that drama. Keep your personal laptop personal and keep whatever your company gives you on a business laptop, keep it business. I had a situation when I taught years ago for a different college, and I was a professor for that college for many, many years. I went on to become a campus manager, and I used to do taxes for one of the professors. I was a professor, she was a professor. We were friends. I did taxes for so many years. She asked me to do my taxes. I'm like, whatever. I charge her like 25 bucks, 50 bucks to do her taxes. And once I became a campus manager, she lived across the street. And so she came over one day and she goes, "Hey, can you print my taxes out for me?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not thinking anything of it." I print her taxes out. Fast forward months later, I turn in my laptop because it was, you know, how they get old and they say, "Okay, turn in your laptops. We're going to give you a new one." Well, the Mr. IT guy, you know, because when you turn it in, they clean it, right? They, get rid of all that information. They run this search on it, which he's doing his job, good friend of mine, and her social security number popped up on my laptop. Well, you're not supposed to have anybody else's social security number. So they did a whole investigation on me for having her social security number. They called her up. She couldn't tell me, "Do you know Taylor had your social security number?" I didn't know any of this. They did a whole investigation behind my back as to why I had her social security number, all for printing out her tax. Anybody ever print out their tax return at work? So you have to be careful, right? Now, of course, I don't know how I felt about it. Like I understood it, but I was a bit upset too, because I'm like, we've been printing out our tax return for years, But there you go. So, like I say, it's their property. So whatever you print, they can question. So that's my little story about being careful with that. Obviously, if there's software, they have privacy issues. You want to be mindful of that. Most of you probably won't have to deal with that, but what you may have to deal with at some point is if you're working on the commercial side, the contracting side, and they have these contracts that you'll get to see, it has money involved. That stuff is proprietary in terms of, it could be a bid or something, and they don't want other people to see it. And so you just have to be mindful of, files and what you're using and what you're downloading and where you're putting things, right? So, they'll talk to you about that if that ever becomes an issue. Most of you guys probably won't have to deal with intellectual property, but you never know. But that is just, let's say, for example, you're working with a company and they have maybe created some new system that they're going to use in construction. And so, there's proprietary, meaning, they don't want it to get out. You have to make sure that you are safeguarding that information. So you just never know. And then, lastly, the other thing I want you to be mindful to is how you act online. We call it netiquette, my friends. We all have heard of etiquette, right? But netiquette is a thing. Has anyone ever seen some very rude behavior online? Anybody ever seen that? I know we were talking about inappropriate postings and just being careful what you say online, especially political stuff. But we've probably seen people with really poor netiquette. You don't want to be that person. Like you don't want to reach out to customers or clients or even your coworkers and just have bad etiquette. Some people have bad text manners, right? Anybody ever had people just so rude when they're texting and it makes you think that their attitude is a certain way and they're like, "No, I don't have a problem at all." You're like, "But please use proper grammar when you're texting me because it doesn't read well." It's the same thing when you're online, when you're doing emails, when you're replying to people. Just make sure that you're using proper netiquette. Make sure that you are communicating effectively. We'll talk more about that when we start talking about networking because you will need to network with people. Maybe not in your first or second position, but I'm going to say you are, but definitely as you get up in the ranks, you are going to be online at some point. Your company may have you do some type of LinkedIn webinar, web conference. You may have to reach out to clients. I mean, you just never know. And you want to be able to use proper etiquette. Proper etiquette. I had an etiquette story when I worked at another university, and I was the program director at this university over business and IT. And I hired teachers, right? I hired professors. So I had advertised, that I was looking for a professor, a business professor. And this professor reached out to me. She sent me her resume on LinkedIn. Now I had gotten, as most postings do, a lot of positive responses. And so, I felt like she was decent. I mean, it was an online professor job just like this one. But one thing, I don't know what it was something about her experience that was I mean, she could do the job, but I don't know, I think somebody just had better experience. Well, apparently she thought that she should have gotten the job. You know how it is when you apply for a job and you're thinking, "Oh my god, this job is so perfect for me. This is my job. This is what I want." So apparently that's how she felt about it. So she started sending me DMs. Have you seen my resume? Why, yes, Mary, I've seen your resume. Thank you for turning it in. So, what did you think about it? I know I'm qualified for the job. I have all the experience. Did you get an opportunity to look at the resume? Yeah, Mary, I looked at your experience. And guess what? I got 100 other resumes with people who had very good experience. Thank you, Mary. She wrote back again. When am I going to hear back from you? So y'all know Mary did not get the job, right? Like, Mary, don't stalk me about a job that you you feel that you deserve. Where do they do that at? That is inappropriate behavior. One thing that you don't ever want to do is stalk anybody. You don't want to stalk anybody about a job. You don't want to stalk anybody about information. Like, you don't want to be that person, right? Use your proper etiquette. We'll talk a little bit about, how to engage with people when you are reaching out to them. Number one, you do want to remember everybody is human. We hear about that all the time, right? We hear about people complaining about how people engage online so rudely, so curt, so improper. Like, you don't want to do that, especially when it comes to engaging with people that employees, contractor, customers. We all have had people that engage with us improperly, right? You ever, whether it's a school or the spectrum or your phone company, some people are just rude, right? And you don't, so it happens, but it's because they feel like, okay, well, I'm not talking to you in person. So I can just not have proper etiquette. Like, you don't want to do that, right? You want to follow the same rules as you would in real life. You want to make sure you know where you are in cyberspace and be careful with that. Respect other people's time. Like, don't be like Mary, okay? Make yourself look good online. That's the whole point of you being online, is to promote yourself in a positive light, right? Not to do things that are going to make people judge you, and you don't want to get that reputation, right? So you guys know all of these things are common sense, but I know common is not always common. So just be careful, because all these things could unfortunately come back. And, once something is online, it's there permanently, and you don't want people to pull things up. I don't know if you guys saw, like, I think we talked about this yesterday about the dentist. Did we talk about that dentist? Did I talk about this morning? Y'all heard about that dentist in California? What happened to her? There was a dentist in California that lost her job because, well, no, she had her own practice. She put online that she has a political affiliation, and she really loves this particular political figure. And she said, for everybody that disagreed with her, all of her patients, she did not give them the same amount of pain medication that she did people with her same party affiliation. I'll give you a few seconds to clutch your pearls. You can Google it. This just came out. She got hit with 13 lawsuits. Probably is going to lose her license. Like, what? Excuse me, ma'am. Let's start here. Forget your political affiliation. There is this thing called an oath that you take when you get a license. Many of you that go on to get licenses will have to take one. Anyone that has a license, I don't care if you have a real estate license, I don't care if you have a medical license, you have to take an oath. That oath states that when you deal with the general public, when you become a subject matter expert, if you go on to become a master electrician, when you get take your master electrician's test and you get your license, you have to raise your right hand and take an oath that you will not do anything to harm the public because you are the subject matter expert. That's what the license is about. When I got a real estate license 20 years ago, the first thing they said to us, the reason why you are getting a license is to protect the public against you so you do not abuse your knowledge. She apparently did not read the fine print. Can you imagine? And then had the audacity to put it online. She thought it was hilarious. I mean, she thought. I mean, y'all look it up. Her, I think she's in Santa Clarita or something like that. Is it Santa Clarita in California? I can't believe it. I could not believe it. So this is real thing, people. This happened in 2025, like not too long ago. So when I tell you you have to be careful, you have to be careful. And guess what? Ask me when she put out the video. She put out the video in 2021. It's 2025. But she made somebody mad and they went and did their research, and now you're about to lose your practice and probably get hit with a whole bunch of lawsuits that you're going to have to pay. Can you imagine? So, yes, you need to be careful what you put online, especially when you become a professional, right? All right, enough about that. So, here is our participation question for the night. Look at that, y'all. We're getting out of here. Here's our participation question for the night. I don't even have to go over your assignment because you already know what that is. So you guys are ahead of the game. Your participation question for tonight is to name one quality that you feel sets you above the competition. One quality that you feel sets you above your competition. Yes, I hate to say it, guys, but the people to the left or right of you, they're your friends, but they're also your competition, right? So, what do you think makes you a little bit different? What sets you apart from your competition, right? And there's always room for improvement, yes. And one quality you could improve on. What's one quality you think you can improve on? And I want you to think about it in terms of your long term goals. I'm going to get you some feedback on those goals hopefully by tomorrow. Your long term goals, thinking about your long term goals, what's one thing, one quality you think you can improve on? All right. All right, my friends, guess what? That is it for tonight. That's it for tonight. If you don't have any questions from me, thank you, Alexander. I will see you guys back here same time tomorrow. We'll be discussing chapter 7. So please start to read chapter 7, and we are going to talk about resume writing. Have a great evening.
Have a good evening. Thanks.
All right, sir.